Good morning and welcome to the Financial Wellness Hour. I am your host, Hirsch, DB Going Solo Network. This show is for those wanting to learn more about creating financial wellness, and we will be taking different life cycles. We're going to explore them both financially and emotionally, because personal finances are usually not about the money, believe it or not. It's rather about the emotions associated with your finances. Our goal is to look at how do we prepare for these life cycles and how do we thrive on the other side. Although we may have a theme for each show, I can assure you the financial strategies we talk about are going to be applicable to many other situations you're going to be facing as well. Although we may be fairly general in our discussions, we'd love to hear from you and make it more personal and relevant. So please reach out, call in, go through the Facebook page, or you can reach me through my website, lifecycle.financial. That is lifecycle.financial. Going solo means different things to different people. Divorce, death of a loved one, perpetual bachelorhood, and I'm sure there are a myriad of other ways that you can look at it as well. And we do plan on covering all of these and more. Today, we're going to focus mainly on becoming financially savvy. I think this is such an important topic, and I find it very interesting how our society as a whole, we teach our kids how to iron a shirt, we teach them how to cook a meal, we teach them how to change a tire, and for some reason we do not equip them with the financial knowledge that they need to be financially savvy. We don't see this in our high schools, we don't see it in our colleges, so I'm very happy to have my guest today, Karolyn.wotring, the owner and the founder of FSW Wealth Advisors and the founder of the Financially Savvy Woman. Karolyn is an experienced wealth advisor focusing on your entire financial picture and how all the pieces and all the components work together. Karolyn's not only helps clients achieve their financial goals, but what I love about it is she educates them along the way as well. Karolyn, welcome. I am so happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, hi, Hirsch. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Good morning to everyone.
Yeah, and I do have to give a quick shout out to Karolyn because I have referred business to Karolyn. I've also been lucky enough to actually sit in on some of those calls and see the way that she actually works with people. And I really appreciate it. One of the big things I do need to shout out is that you meet them on the level where they are currently. And that I think is a huge thing. You don't speak over their heads. You don't speak under them. You speak to them. And that's incredibly important for them. So again, welcome and thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's really important to me, Hirsch. When I meet with new people, almost every single one of them apologizes to me about their lack of knowledge of finances. And it really bothers me. I really want to remind people that while you're an expert in your field, I'm an expert in mine, and you don't have to understand everything. When we go to the auto dealer or the auto mechanic, we don't expect to know exactly how they're going to fix our car. You know, when we get a surgery, we don't know everything they're going to do. And as long as you know who to have with you, that's the most important part. I educate while I meet with people, but they don't have to know everything there is to know about finance.
That is really important and good for them as well to understand. I think sometimes people come in and with that apology, there's more to it than the apology that comes with that. So putting them at ease is a good thing to be able to do. And I think, just starting with that, the lack of knowledge and people recognizing it, I think what I'm going to do is start maybe with some of the mistakes that people make, because you can learn as much from your mistakes as you can from your achievements, sometimes even more. So I'm going to ask you to start out. What would you say are some of the biggest money mistakes that you see that people make?
Number one, I would say probably is people don't know their numbers. You know, often when we run a business, we would know what the cash flow is coming in and what the cash flow is going out. But when we run our family or our life, we don't have any idea what our numbers are. Too often I will ask people, you know, how much money do you spend each month, or how much do you need to be able to pay your bills? And they just really don't know. So I would say number one is just not knowing your numbers. Not seeing the importance of understanding what is coming in and what's going out. Number two, I would say, is they don't understand the importance of a plan. Nobody would start to buy or build a house without a house plan. And a lot of times I'll hear someone say, I don't have enough money for a plan. Well, whether you're building a house, a mansion, or a shed, you still wouldn't do it without a plan. And so having a plan is absolutely essential. Number three, probably mistake I see is not understanding the difference between an investment advisor and a full real wealth manager or somebody who's a financial advisor. See, an investment advisor will just ask you, how much money do you have to invest? And then they'll just make an investment recommendation. Where a true wealth advisor like myself will look at all the different components. Are you going to be getting Social Security? How much do you need each month to pay your bills? What are your goals? Are there going to be inheritances? Is anyone going to be depending on you in the future? Are you going to be here in Illinois? Are you going to be in another state? There's a lot of components that need to be taken into consideration, and people just don't realize that it's so much more than just how much money is my particular investment going to make.
Yeah, and just to reiterate a couple of those points, because I think it's so important. We are complete human beings, not just health-wise, as you mentioned earlier, like going to a surgeon or, our financial life is the same way. We have many components and we need to address all of them. When you go for an annual physical, you don't say to them, can you check half of me? You want a full physical. And also knowing those numbers, I think is important. I will talk about this through the show, but budgets become very important. Understanding your budgets, the idea of a budget is not that once you put everything down, you close your eyes and put a prayer together, that something's at the bottom line. You can be very deliberate in how you put that together as one of the components of your full financial picture. So those are all great. I love that. And again, we can learn as much from our mistakes. So if anyone is doing any of the things that were mentioned above or before, I think it's important that they think about it and then obviously work with the right individual. Like you said, you can work with somebody who's just going to manage your investments. That's only a piece of what you need to know, though, in general. And I think in general, another big thing that comes up, it's not a mistake, it's just a question that people don't really know, is where does the money go? So do you have any rules around where the money goes, where it should go, the particular components of your life? Share a little bit about that, if you would, on how people should spend money and where the money goes.
Yeah, so my critical rule, Fiduciary Standards will say that you should be saving at least 20% of your income right off the top. I always tell my clients, absolutely pay yourself first. That's critical. Throughout your life, people will be waiting there with their hands out to have you collect your mortgage payment or your rent or your utilities. And it is absolutely critical to pay yourself first. And by that, I obviously mean by saving. So off the record, no matter what, I would say Fiduciary Standards say 20% of your income. Some of that's going to be short term, some of it's going to be midterm and long term. On top of that, I think there are a lot of different opinions out there. I would say that no more than half of your monthly income should be on your fixed expenses, because you need to be able to allow for building up a emergency fund, as well as having the unexpected discretionary items come up that are going to, come up every month. But if I think a guideline would be somewhere around half of your income to pay for your monthly expenses that are fixed, that stay the same every month, like car payments, mortgage payments, utilities that don't fluctuate, things like that.
So I'm going to ask if we can dive a little bit further into what is discretionary income, what is a fixed expense, a variable expense, how do you educate people and work with them to understand those pieces?
Absolutely. So one of the places that I start always is really just making sure that my clients understand the difference between a need and a want, because people really don't, they think they need to go out to dinner once a month or once a week or once a day. And to really understand the difference between a need and a want helps people to understand the difference between discretionary income. If you have obligated bills that you have committed to, say your mortgage, your different monthly bills that stay the same every month, that are not entertainment, are not eating out, are not things that you could cut out very easily, those are your essential fixed expenses. Anything above that would be considered discretionary, meaning that you have the discretion to stop it if you need to.
So I love this because I could go for an hour just on these things that we speak about, but I won't. But from a budget perspective, I say to people today in this world we're living in with this pandemic, for sure, like internet is essential to connect, to work, all the things. Cable's not,
Right.
A lot of people kind of think that. And I love that you started, by the way, with savings. When I educate people, and I know that you have a similar mindset, if you look at your savings as optional, when I get to the end of the month, if I have something over, I'll put it away. You're not really going to save a whole lot. If you look at it as almost like one of those fixed expenses, almost like an obligation that you were speaking about, I think that's a nice way to look at it, and it will really ensure a better savings. And that's where things like 401k, before you even get the money in your checking account, becomes so essential in being able to do these kind of things. And, I speak to clients also, needs versus wants is just such an important thing to understand. We want to live our lives, don't get me wrong, but we can do it deliberately, and we can still be very fulfilled in the way that we do it. So I will stop there and not take the other 56 minutes I would have. But I do want to talk a little bit about, you spoke about having a plan. There are obviously elements, very key elements. If you were to say there were 3 key elements in becoming financially savvy, what would be some of the things around there that you would talk about, that you would share in saying to somebody, these are the things you really need to kind of master going forward?
So in the book that I'm working on, there are 10 chapters that talk about who the financially savvy woman is. So to get it down to 3 will be challenging, but I would say if I had to pick my top 3, paying yourself first is really critical. Just like you said, if you wait until you've paid everybody else and see what's left over, you're not going to have what you need in order to be able to save and hit the goals you want. Knowing a plan is critical. Knowing who to have with you and having someone that will give you accountability and will reevaluate your plan regularly to see if you're hitting your goals, tweaking your plan as your life changes, that's really critical. And then just knowing your numbers, knowing what's coming in and what's going out. If you don't allow yourself to understand and see your numbers transparently, then you live in bliss. And people will say that ignorance is bliss and that it's wonderful if you don't know, but you're also never going to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish if you don't have some kind of a plan. So people will often say that budgets are like a diet, and it's a bad word, but you wouldn't run a business without knowing what your cash flow is or what your expenditures are monthly. And it's a really bad idea to try to run your life and your home that way.
Yeah, and this, I've discussed the way I do budgets, a little bit differently, where we focus exclusively, or in the beginning exclusively, on the absolute necessities that you have. And then we look at your income, and then we build your discretionary spend from there, that optional spend. And I think that's a big way to do it, especially in today's world, because we do need to cut things out. We may be furloughed, we may be cut in hours, cut in pay, whatever it is, and really understanding those numbers. I want to bring that over a little bit also to understanding, if I can, your net worth and how that plays in. Your budget is kind of a let's even say you put a budget together for a month or a quarter or a year, because not every single expense you have is paid on a monthly basis. But you also have to have that long-term understanding. And I think your net worth plays into that as well. There are so many pieces to that. Is it liquid assets? Is it part of your retirement and you can't touch that? Even retirement vehicles are different, a Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. Is your money locked up because you're house rich and cash poor? All of these numbers, again, knowing your numbers becomes very, very important. Do you have any thoughts on the net worth side of knowing your numbers?
I just think it's really important that people understand that not all money is created equal. I see this mostly when we're talking about, when I'm counseling people in divorce, they will not really understand the difference between $100,000 in equity in the house is not the same as $100,000 in a bank account or not the same as $100,000 in a retirement account. All three of those monies are very different, and they are affected differently by taxes. They're affected differently by liquidity, meaning if you can take it now or if you have to wait till a certain age without getting a penalty. So there's a lot of different aspects to money and the type of money that you have, and really understanding the complexities of it is essential. But what's more essential than that is having somebody as a partner with you that can help explain the differences if you don't quite understand it.
Yeah, I think it's so important. I think the other thing which complicates the issue for some people sometimes is you need to put the two together. What is my net worth? What is my budget? How do they play together? For example, I'm going back a couple months now. I had a client say to me, I think I'm going to come out with about $800,000 after the divorce is done, because you had mentioned divorce. I think that's pretty good, right? And my comment was, it depends on how much you spend. Coming back to your budget and your numbers that you need to know. If you spend $200,000 a year, that's only 4 years worth of spend. If you spend $50,000 a year, you've got about 16 years worth of spend. So knowing the numbers and not just nominally, oh, it's 800,000 or my budget is X, putting it together, I think is what makes it so crucial and so important. And that's, again, where someone like yourself plays in and, does a little reality testing, gut check. Does this make sense? All these kind of things I think play in from the guidance that someone like yourself can bring and the education that you can bring as well.
You mentioned something that's very, very hot button for me, and that is I often will get people who will say, well, I've heard that I have to have $1 million, or I've heard that I have to have $2 million in order to effectively retirement or to effectively retire. And it is essential that you understand that what might be enough for me may not be enough for you, and vice versa. Just like every other aspect of our lives, we're individuals, and every person's plan and every person's goals and every person's money is different. And when it comes to your net worth, not all of it is liquid, and you need to know what you can use to pay your bills and live comfortably. And it's going to be different than what I have.
Right.
So I think it's important that when you work with a wealth advisor or someone who manages your money for you, that you should be able to easily check your net worth at any time. So with my clients, they have a website that they can go on, and as they pay down their mortgage and as their investments grow, they can see their net worth changing on a day-to-day basis. And I think that that's really important. It's exciting to see your net worth growing over time, even if you have some of it tied up in an asset that might be appreciating, like a home.
Right. And I will say, I think that builds momentum sometimes when you see that going up, when you see your debt going down. I think that all builds momentum. And, we call it personal finances because it's not collective finances.
Right.
It is very, very personalized. That, I'll say to people as an example, they say, oh, my neighbor went through a divorce, and the neighbor's living in a pretty similar home. They, drive similar cars, they have similar amount of kids, and their life is completely different. You can take advice from them, but you have to understand it is personal. It is very different. And, this is a perfect lead into just asking you, how do things change, I guess, if you're single versus married and making one of those transitions, or just individually anyway?
It changes in a lot of ways, some for the good and some for the bad. I would say the most empowering change is that you are now in control. So you are responsible, and that's scary in some ways, but it's also very empowering because now you can make sure that your financial future is going to be strong because you're in control of the choices you make. So I think that that's really essential and important. But obviously, when you're a partner with someone, you have to, not only does your habits and discipline affect the way your future is going to be, but so does your partner's. And that can be devastating, or that could be really beneficial depending on the mindset of the partner that you're with. But there are a lot of different things that affect you if you're married. For instance, am I eligible for part of his Social Security? Even if there isn't a divorce. So it's really essential that while you're meeting with someone like a financial advisor or a wealth manager, that you're working on a plan as a whole so that you can see how your two plans can complement each other into one plan.
Right. And, sometimes, especially in a marriage, we divide and conquer responsibilities. We don't both do the cooking, both do the, taking the kids, both do the cleaning, both do the finances. So I think it's common when people do in a marriage divide and conquer. But that's where the plan becomes so essential. Even if one person is taking the lead on the finances, it doesn't mean the other one shouldn't know what's going on or understand, because this is a partnership and your money is a partnership moving forward. So I think that is also very, very important for people to understand as well.
So you just hit my passion, Hirsch. The reason that the Financially Savvy Woman was founded, I think that our country has come to a place where we used to be, my husband handles that for the finances. So women, we will lead in many aspects of our life. A lot of us will laugh, because if my husband came to me and said, oh, this is how we're going to parent and our kids are going to eat this, there's a lot of women who are going to go, no, you are not feeding them Fruity Pebbles for dinner. So we're pretty confident in our ability to lead in certain aspects. If they talk about decorating the house, we're pretty confident to say, no, that couch is not going to go there, or you're not putting your big ugly chair and your beer signs in my living room. So we feel pretty confident in leading when it comes to certain aspects of our life. Now, women even will take the lead on paying the monthly bills. But when it comes to long-term planning and retirement planning, often for some weird reason, we take the back seat and say, my husband handles that, or he's better at the finances than I am. And so that is why Financially Savvy Woman was founded, was to encourage women that they don't need to take the back seat. And the reason that that's critically important is because 80% of women will outlive their partner. And what happens, and what's happened to our parents or our grandparents, is that someday he's gone and she has no clue what's going on. So and it's really important.
I'm going to ask that we pause. We're going to pay a couple bills, but don't lose that thought, because this is huge and I want to come back to it. So stick around. We will be right back. Hi, welcome back. This is WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, the Financial Wellness Hour. And I am with Karolyn.wotring. The first thing I should have done was, Karolyn, can you share how people can get in touch with you? I want to give a quick recap after that and then go back into that topic, because that is such a huge topic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Today, I'm actually giving out something free for your clients and your listeners, Hirsch. If anyone who contacts me at Karolyn.wotring@nm.com or reaches out on my business cell phone, 847-772-3928, we will give you the 30-minute consultation at no charge, where we can help to direct you, answer some of your questions, and see if we can be a resource for you either now or in the future, but certainly want to direct you in understanding what a plan might look like for you.
That's great. I appreciate that offer, and I hope people take you up on it. I'm going to give a real quick recap. We spoke a little bit about putting all the pieces, the components together, and working with somebody who really understands how it fits together for your financial future. I think we can learn a lot from some of those mistakes that people are making that we spoke about, understanding where the money is going and kind of how we should be spending some of that. You covered some of those 3 key elements about knowing your numbers, having a plan, and obviously the characteristics of people's savings and how they put it together. One of the things that I do want to touch on that you had mentioned is how women tend to take a back seat. And 95% of who I work with are women. And I will tell them, he wasn't born with a calculator. And just because he's doing it doesn't mean he does it well.
Right.
And you touched on a very big topic for me, because exactly what you described, and this might be a good, entree back in, is my mom is in the exact situation, or was in the exact situation. My dad, they were on vacation. My dad passed away out of the blue with we had no clue, and he wasn't ill. He had a heart attack while on vacation. And my mom was obviously devastated emotionally, but she was completely lost financially. She emotionally wasn't in a position to try to understand at this point the complexities of your personal finances. But she never had a clue. I mean, and everything fell on really mostly my brother, because he's also financially very astute, but my mom had no idea and couldn't figure it out in any way. So I'm going to hand it back over to you to continue that conversation that you were saying, because this is huge. And unfortunately, as you said, 80% of women outlive their husbands. That's an enormous statistic to not take and be engaged and take some engagement and understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to misunderstand me. I'm not saying that women should take the lead in a relationship and push him out.
No.
I just think it's really critical that you both understand what's going on, and that I'm challenging women and encouraging them to stop feeling insecure about not understanding the finances. When I meet with a client, a couple, Hirsch, I always encourage that both people come. And I know that maybe they won't want to, or women will sometimes focus more on what's happening right here and now. Joey has to be at practice, or I have to pay for Joey's camp, and I can't think about what's going to happen 15 years from now when I'm right here. And I understand that, certainly, having been a mom and having been through a divorce and doing bills together and by myself, it's really critical that you understand all of the aspects of what's happening. And also, if you don't have a relationship with a financial advisor and it's somebody he's always worked with, you're going to have some real doubt about how much trust you have for them, or if they, you're starting basically at square one then, trying to understand it all. When, again, like you said, you're not emotionally in the place that you would be if you would have just made it a priority to understand that earlier in your life.
That is huge. And, we were touching a little earlier on being single versus married and people getting divorced. And I'll tell you another piece that plays into this. It's not really fully of our discussion, but I speak to so many people who've been through a divorce, and they think, okay, I'm divorced, that's it. And they don't think about, okay, this is really the first chapter of the rest of my life. And they don't set up an estate plan. And they don't, I've dealt with one person where they didn't move over the assets that they had. They had a quadro, but they never moved them over for over 3 years. And the settlement there was they had to take the original amount. They didn't get any of the growth of that money. There are so many components, especially as you go through a life cycle, that really need to be discussed, because your needs and your whole financial planning and wealth management can change significantly based on what's going on. I've seen estate plans where, I sat with people, I asked them, I think we've had 2 kids since we put our estate plan together. These are the kind of things that become so important, I think. And, not everybody understands it. They think, I did an estate plan. Why do I need to review it? These are the kind of things that somebody with the expertise of a wealth manager can put together and really explain. These are the advantages. These are the disadvantages. This is why I'm suggesting this, and really guide you in those ways as well, which becomes such a big piece to financial wellness and peace of mind, being able to sleep at night. So.
Hirsch, it's not, it's, as you mentioned, estate planning is critical. And one of the things that I would say that has been shocking to me is, I can't tell you how many times I've seen the young, beautiful family who has taken the time and spent the money to have an estate plan done, and they have a trust built, and the trust is never funded.
Yes.
And for a lot of your listeners, they may not even understand what that means, but just know that it's really important that your financial planner understands and works closely with your estate planning attorney. Because if your trust does not own the assets that you had intended on putting in there, then you spent all of that money basically for nothing, because it's not going to do what you wanted it to do.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've had people walk in and go, but look, here's my estate plan. It says it right here. But you're right. They've got to come full cycle with everything. And that's where the partnership, we spoke a little bit more about having the right people. That's where partnership with other professionals becomes so incredibly important, that you can work as a team. I need to understand what you are doing. You need to understand what the estate plan is doing. And as a team, we can really fulfill, your intent as a client. But if we're working independently, we can't always do that. And that's another piece that I think becomes very important to all of this.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons that a financial planner, along with someone like yourself who helps them more on a day-to-day, helping them to set some routines in place and understand some of the basics of monthly budgeting and getting things in order, is critical, so that you're planning for right now and you're also planning for the future.
Right. Yeah, creating the discipline is not just for a long term, it's for short term, it's for intermediate, as you mentioned earlier. And again, everyone has their specialty. And, I always tell people, I've learned a lot about the law. I'm certainly not going to try to represent you or give you legal advice. You do need those right people for sure. So, well, talking about trust, talking about retirement, talking about all these things that we have, there definitely is an array of options out there. There's an array of approaches out there. And as you've mentioned earlier, not all assets are created equal. I'm going to throw in there question or statement, take it how you want. Not all debt is created equal either. Can you talk a little bit about, approaches, different options, equal, not equal? Can you talk a little bit about that for us?
Absolutely. So a lot of people have a very misconstrued idea of debt and what is good debt, what is bad debt. And it is really essential to have savings. It's critical to have a emergency fund. But if you have a bunch of money sitting in savings, yet you're paying 15 to 25% on a credit cards are bad debt.
Yes.
They compound daily, they grow very quickly, and it's a snowball that can't get stopped. And so understanding that while some debt, say for instance a mortgage, isn't a horrible debt, there's also credit card debt that the interest is being compounding regularly. It's just a lot harder to get a handle on it. There's a different, student loan debt may be considered good debt because it's helping you to grow wealth, where a credit card is definitely considered bad debt. Vehicles. It's important that you have a dependable vehicle, but understand that when you purchase a car, it's going to depreciate the minute that you drive it off the lot. So where your home might be appreciating, your vehicle is depreciating, and just understanding that. Also, I think I spend some time making sure that my clients understand that while something might be on sale, I love it. They'll say, but this was on sale. Well, I'll just tell you right now that I don't care if it was on clearance and it was 1/10 of the price that it normally is. If you put it on a credit card that you're not going to be able to pay off that month, it's pretty much not on sale anymore. Because by the time you pay 23% on it, pardon me?
Carolyn, I saved 25% is the answer that
right.
I didn't really hear, right? But you didn't. You
exactly.
spent 75%. And to
that point, and understanding.
Sorry, go ahead.
Understanding opportunity cost is very critical too. Understanding that while you may, like people will say, should I pay off my home if I have a 4% interest rate on there? Should I pay off my home or should I invest the money? And understanding that where you may have a loan for 4% on your home, you could have possibly invested that money and earned more. So it's really critical to understand that if you're holding up your money at a lower interest rate, there's some opportunity cost there where you could have done something more productive with that money.
Right, and especially looking at your home, let's say it's at 3%, which if you refinance, that's not an unreasonable estimate of where it would come in, but nice, easy number to round out. That also very often becomes a deductible expense on your taxes, which means although you pay 3%, you get some of that back through your taxes often, effectively making it much less than 3% for you, which in itself can be an enormous piece. And, I think to your point of credit cards, which can be easily at 20, 25%, as you mentioned, people don't realize when they actually break it down and they look, I made a payment, how much of that is just interest, not principal, they'd be amazed. And I actually was speaking with a client yesterday who I've been working with for a little bit, had about 23,000 in credit cards, and said, I don't know, it's going to take me 10 years to pay this off. When I started looking at how they were paying and distributing their funds in their discretionary funds, I said to him, you can pay this let's say $21,000. You can pay it off in 2 years. And I almost wanted to bet him that he could. But basically, just sometimes by prioritizing and understanding what you have in your debt can make an enormous difference when it comes to how to pay off this bad debt much quicker and how to get debt-free and disciplined in how you structure those payments can go an enormous way, cut your debt, eliminate a lot of the interest costs that you have, and not necessarily come out of pocket any more than you were before, but just having that plan plays in so significantly. So, I also want to, talk a little bit about, because this, I can't really call it a mistake from the beginning, but it touches on people sometimes not understanding those numbers that you spoke about. There's really often a lack of knowledge around investing, as we've mentioned. Do you ever find people set up a plan, it sounds like a good plan when they set it up, and then they come to you later on, it's just a totally lopsided portfolio, not according to plan? Do you ever see something like that happen?
Absolutely. I think that's why it's absolutely critical to, at least at minimum, I meet with my clients at least once a year to reassess what's happening in their lives. Because while your life changes, your plan needs to change. And depending on how the market performs, maybe they've picked a portfolio where they have something that's a little more risky and it only has a very small percentage of their money risky. But then the market does really well, and that risky portfolio has grown 5 times faster than the rest of their money, and now they aren't set up the way they initially wanted to be. So as far as investments go, rebalancing those investments is very critical, but also just having your goals in life change. Maybe when we first set up your plan, your kids were small and you were on one track, and maybe life changed and your income has significantly changed, or your bills have significantly changed. Right. So it's really essential and critical to tweak your plan and have your plan be kind of a living, breathing plan that changes with you as your life changes. That's really important. So
I am going to have to get you back on the show because we've only got about 4 minutes. There's so much more I want to talk to you about. Divorce, keeping the house, your book. There's a lot more. So absolutely, I have to have you back. But I do want to ask you a little bit to talk about FSW Wealth Advisors and talk a little bit about the Financially Savvy Woman that you founded both of these so that people really understand a little bit more. We've touched on them, but I think it's important they hear more.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. That is our new passion. And we, my team and I have taken on the passion to want to encourage women and empower women to understand that they need to trust their judgment when it comes to understanding and making decisions when it comes to long-term financial wealth and growing wealth. And then they need to, whether they come alongside the person they love, their partner, do it as a team, but don't just take the back seat, because there's a very good chance that you're going to end up needing to understand and take the forefront of the finances, whether you want to or not. So we're really encouraging women to become more confident and competent when it comes to finances, which is what bred the Financially Savvy Woman, making sure that they understand the critical elements and who the financially savvy woman is, what makes her her, and what makes you be able to be savvy too. And then the wealth management company, FSW Wealth Advisors, purely is just a team of women who are women working for women by women. And I certainly am happy to be an advisor to men as well. But we just won't let the women take the back seat. We want them to be educated as well. And so educating you on your wealth and having a team that does a plan that regularly changes with you. That's our passion, and that's what we do.
Well, I love that. I will say, any focusing on the woman and financially savvy woman, anyone who's saying, I'm too old for that, I can't do that, I would tell you, you absolutely can. That's exactly one of the reasons maybe that you need to call Karolyn, because she knows you can as well, and she knows how to work with you to get you there. So anyone who has that kind of mindset, I would say change the mindset. And if you can't, Karolyn will help you do that as well, through educating you, through working with you, through showing you how to do it. Karolyn, I really appreciate it. We're going to wrap up. I do want you to share how people can get in touch with you again, if you can share some of that with you as well, with them.
Absolutely. Again, I'm available always at Karolyn.wotring@nm.com. If you have questions, I am 2% of all financial advisors are also what we call a CDFA, a certified divorce financial analyst. If you have questions prior to getting divorced, making that decision, during your divorce, or immediately after, I can help you with all of that. You can reach out to me. Feel free to give me a call, 847-772-3928. As I mentioned, any of your listeners, 30-minute complimentary consultation session. Don't ask your friends to answer questions they may not be informed about. Get advice from a professional.
100%. I couldn't have said that better. Your friends are great in emotional support. Your professionals are the ones you want to turn to for financial support. So, Karolyn, thank you for sharing your experiences, your insights on becoming financially savvy. Not easy topics to put over in such an easy, simple fashion for people to understand. So I really do appreciate it. I'm Hirsch Serman, your host of Financial Wellness Hour. Please reach out to me through my website, lifecycle.financial. That's lifecycle.financial. Please reach out whether you have questions for me, for Karolyn, our guest today, and I look forward to you tuning into the next show. Thank you so much. Be well. Have a great week.
Thanks, Hirsch.